Hi, this is Miguel Belmonte, and this is my KiteRunner presentation. The summary of the book is that there's a main character, Amir, and he's from Afghanistan, and Amir is full of internal struggle as he tries to live up to the standards set by his very successful father, and also treating Hassan, the boy who he grew up with, as his equal. These internal struggles lead to Amir committing horrible actions to secure Baba's appreciation at the expense of Hassan. But eventually Amir and Hassan escape to America, and in America they're both humbled and matured, especially Amir. Amir then gets a call from an old friend, Rahim Khan, and promises that there's a way to be good again. Amir then returns to Afghanistan to redeem himself by saving Hassan's son, Sarab. Once he accomplishes that task, Amir gets the redemption he wanted. The setting, there's two places the book takes place. The first one is Afghanistan. The beginning and parts of the end take place here. And Afghanistan is, in the Middle East, Muslim majority. It's here where many cruel actions take place, like Amir betraying Hassan, but also where redemption is found. It's here where Sarab is saved. And also America. The book takes place near San Francisco, and this is where Amir and Baba escape to, and that's where they're humbled. And everybody becomes more mature and more warm here, especially Baba. And Baba being more warm towards Amir leads Amir to become a man, and that maturation lets Amir get redemption. There's four main characters in my opinion. Amir, the main character, full of internal conflict. Baba, the father of Amir, who's very successful but also has plenty of skeletons in his closet. Hassan, the brother of Amir, although he never knew. He's a Hazara, lower class. And Amir betrays them, but Hassan still loves him at the end. And Asaf, a cruel bully who is the main catalyst for Amir's guilt. There are two main themes present in the novel. Number one is that guilt is a powerful motivator, and that most actions are derived from guilt and trying to get rid of it. And redemption can relieve the burdens of guilt, as it's shown that redemption alleviates the guilt felt by Amir and Baba. The first lit device I noticed was imagery and carving, because in page 80 it talks about how Hassan looked older than Amir remembered. Lines had etched into his face, and Amir might have as well taken a knife and carved those lines himself. The image of Hassan cutting into Hassan's flesh depicts a sense of intense guilt, as using a knife, especially carving, is sadistic and cruel. This is significant because Hassini reveals that Amir knows that he's responsible for those deep lines on Hassan's face, and the reader can understand that Amir carries that guilt. The second device I noticed was symbolism with rain. In page 94, Amir's in his room, and he watches the rain soak Baba and Ali and Hassan when they're leaving after he planted the money. And for me, I think the heavy downpour symbolizes a cleanse for everyone out there. It cleanses them of their past, especially Ali and Hassan, because they're the ones getting wet, and they're trying to escape the terrible things that happened in the past. But Hassini really wants to put emphasis on how Amir isn't out there, and he's not getting cleansed himself. He just stays inside and still carries the guilt. But later on, and at the end of the book, he hears raindrops when he saves Sahrab, and he gets wet when he's chasing the kite. And here in America, the rain is still a cleansing substance, and Amir actually gets cleansed because he's actually outside, and he's finally free of his past, just like Hassan and Ali were. Another device was detail. Baba's final words. In page 151, Soraya tries to give Baba morphine for his cancer, but Baba says, "Not tonight. There is no pain tonight." The detail of Baba not feeling any pain, despite being in late stages of cancer, conveys a sense of solace. Hassini wants the readers to see that Baba is in a state of tranquility because he has his redemption. He saw Amir become a man, and once he finally noticed that, it caused Baba to be blissful, and he died peacefully, no pain. And another device was diction, because when Asaf is beating up Amir, almost to death, it's written how Amir laughed The phrase laughter almost is always associated with feelings of joy, and that's what Amir feels when he's getting, beaten to a pulp. He feels joy because he's finally getting the punishment he craved for so many years. He's getting his redemption. Some Texas text stuff I found was text itself. Guilt drives the characters to do their actions, and I've kind of been there too. Text to text, I thought it really compared well to Othello. I mean, for the record, I didn't know the thing. Like, the example also used jealousy, but anyways. Because, like, guilt is a human emotion, and it's powerful, and it drives Bob and Amir to do the things they do. And jealousy, another human emotion, drives the main characters of Othello, Iago and Othello, to do their thing, do their evil things. Jealousy drives Othello to kill his wife, and jealousy drove Iago to ruin Othello and, like, all the other characters. And text to world, the first thing that popped into my mind was LeBron James. He left Cleveland in 2010 to join the Heat and to win championships. But he felt guilty for leaving his hometown and the team that drafted him, so he would go back to Cleveland and he would win a championship with the Cavs. But all of that happened because he felt guilty for leaving them in the first place. My favorite quotes from the book, my first one was in page 2, is when Rahim Khan calls and he tells Amir there's a way to be good again. I like this line because it sets up the whole book. The reader knows that Amir grows up to be, a pretty he has a stable life, a good life, but he's still missing something. And Khan's call gives him an opportunity to get redemption that he still doesn't have for betraying Hassan. Another line I liked was in page 288 when Amir asks Mr. Andrews if he has children. And he finally finishes the exchange with "I thought so." I like this line because you can see that Amir has truly turned a corner and become a selfless man. And there's no shred of that selfish boy from the 1970s in Afghanistan. He doesn't care that Sarhab is a Hazara, he just wants to rescue him and not leave him as an orphan. And my favorite line is at the end of the book, at page 323, when the reader finds out that Sarhab is smiling. And then Amir says "for you 1,000 times over," Hassan's words. I love that final sequence because it shows that there's a future for both Amir and Sarhab, and they don't have to be chained to the past. They can move on, even though it won't be easy. Some unique discoveries about the KiteRunner and the stuff around it. I mainly focus on the history of Afghanistan. And I found out that Afghanistan was settled 100,000 years ago. And some notable groups that would rule Afghanistan would be the Achaemenids, the Greeks, Abbasid, Mongols, and Muhammad Zahir Shah holding power from until 1973. And then that's when hell broke loose, because in 1979 the Soviets invaded the region. The Americans backed the insurgents, beat them because it was a Cold War. But those insurgents would be the Taliban, and they would put extremist views on every aspect of the country. And of course, the Taliban, that would hold backfire because of 9/11. And in 2001, the United States attacked Afghanistan and got the Taliban to withdraw. And Afghanistan had the first election in 2004, but it's still unstable because the Taliban is still there. And I got my information from Britannica and Wikipedia. My final analysis of the KiteRunner is that I really did like the book. I thought it was a good plot. I love the character arc of Amir because I think most people hated him at first because of what he did. But by the end of the book, you can respect him because he stepped up. He did what he had to do to make up for what he did. And I say this as a top 10 book. But it's not my favorite assigned reading because I personally think The Outsiders. I enjoyed The Outsiders more, but this is definitely number 2. Important information I got from the KiteRunner, from a Marxist perspective, is how influential the Hazara Pashtun divide is, and how much it influenced Amir. And the crit showed how Amir justified his inaction that allowed Hassan to get raped due to him being a lower class. That could help in a Q3, as I could write how arbitrary rules affect us even though we don't think they do. And I also like the line, Amir uses Hassan as an object, commodity. And that explains why Amir didn't feel bad about still using the kite. And I could use that in Q3 to mention how people do terrible things to get their goal, to achieve their goals. Information I got from guilt as a driving force of humanity. That crit was that I didn't really notice that guilt was the driving force because I was so, engrossed with the plot. And of course, that's helpful in a Q3 because I can write how everybody wants to get rid of the guilt they carry, and they do it differently. And the line, "Guilt drives all people, not just characters in novels," is a great quote because it relates back to the human condition, and you can use it in a Q3 to explain why it matters. And important information from How to Fly a Kite for Dummies is how sacrifices sometimes aren't enough to get the love of others, because the crit mentions how Hassan was loyal and sacrificed himself for Amir to get his love, but he unfortunately never got it. And it can be used in a Q3 to talk about how some goals are just unattainable, no matter how hard we try. And another idea I got was how liberation from the past is difficult but possible, and how it took Amir to get almost beaten to death by himself to move on from his past. And I could write how, in a Q3, we must do difficult things to get what we want. Yeah.